So my Powerpuff, you're okay. Today I want to share with you this project. I think it's quite cute and unusual, and I'm sorry of the shaky camera angle. It was really hard to try and get a really good shot of this. It looks so much better in person. As you can see, it's sort of a random collection of bits and bobs, and it's called a captured fairy jar, and there is my fairy. And once again, I'm sorry that you can't see it particularly well. But obviously you can use any fairy that you like. I just found her image from a Google search. So to make this project you will need a fairy cutout or fairy picture cutout. You'll also need a jar. I'm just using a lemon tea jar. And for my fairy, this little lady here, I want her to look like she's sitting on a swing, so I am using a quilt pin that has the little drops on that you can make brooches with and things like that. So this is just a bit of a jump. I've just popped some chain onto my quilt pin, some to hang it that I've attached at the top with some jump rings, and then some down here just to add a little bit of the dangle, as you can see. And I didn't want to show doing this because I've got plenty of jewelry tutorials that will show you how to do that, but this is what I want it to do because I'll be securing the chain, or the swing if you will, like that, and I'll be securing it onto the lid of the jar and it will hang like so. So a bit of a jump forward, I've just added some extra red beads onto my little fairy swing. I'm using whites and reds because the dresser that this will end up living on is all whites and reds in our lounge, because our lounge is red and green. And this is just the back view of my fairy. So here you can see me using some double-sided tape. This is acid and lignin free, just so she won't discolour. And I'm just trying to position the chain. I'm sorry about my fingers in the shot here. Just trying to position the chain so she will hang really nicely on the swing and also be very secure and won't wobble around too much. So I'm just actually securing the safety pin itself to her rather than just the chain. And then some extra on the chain as well. And the beads I used for the drops were just odds and ends that didn't have any partners, so I couldn't make any jewellery or anything out of them, and I'd been wondering for ages what to do with them, and I thought they'd be perfect for this project. And really, when you're fastening the chain, you could use glue if you wanted, but I found the double-sided tape just held it very securely and wasn't wet, so it didn't warp. And I did print out my fairy on quite a heavy cardstock, like a photo paper, but still I didn't want to risk glue warping her at all. And I'm just trying to adhere that little charm just so he hangs nicely underneath her skirt. And that is what I have so far for her. Whoops, trying to get a good shot here. So that's what she's looking like. As you can see, she does look like she is sat on a swing. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to position it so it looks like the part she's sitting on is further down than the part she isn't, just so it looks slightly more realistic, even though there is nothing realistic whatsoever about this. So just to add a little bit of sparkle to my fairy, I'm using this Stickles glitter glue in, I can't quite remember, and I've since thrown the bottle away because this used up the very last of it. It was sort of like an iridescent Aurora Borealis type of glitter, and I'm just applying that onto her wings because I wanted them to sparkle. And this would probably have been easier if I had popped the glue on before I stuck her onto her swing, but I didn't. Live and learn, really. And you just want to set that aside to dry, and you can get on with the rest of decorating your jar. Now I wanted to make a little bit of a habitat for my fairy, so I chose to use these sort of pearl and bead, I don't know, stems, sticks. These are actually for bridal bouquet making. I had them left over from when I pulled my button bouquet apart from my wedding. And I just have this little mini jar here as well. This is going to be a second type of decor. This is going to be like fairy food, I suppose, that I'm going to create. So I'm just using some of this Stargazer glitter and also these micro beads that are supposed to be for nail art. I just got the Stargazer glitter from a local shop and I've had it for absolutely years. And it's holographic silver, I think it's called. It's just an absolutely gorgeous shimmery sparkly colour, as you might be able to tell. I'm just using some rolled up paper as a funnel. Now what I did mean to mention before is that with the stems of the gems, I hot glued them into a taller vase, or taller little jar, which was like a vase really. Unfortunately, in the finished design you can't see it properly because it was too tall, or the stems ended up being too tall for the jar, so the lid of the jar blocked them off in the end. So really keep that in mind if you decide to give your fairy some habitat, which I really should have done, but I didn't, unfortunately. So it's sort of lost in the final design, but I know it's there, so I like that. And as you can see, I'm just filling up this little jar with some glitter. This is my take on fairy food, if you will. Just wanted to add a little bit of extra sparkle to the jar, just to give it a little bit more whimsy. And I like sparkle, and because I live with my husband, he's not very into sparkly or girly things, so it's nice when I can add tiny little things in larger pieces. I'm quite lucky he really did like the fairy, so it wasn't too bad. And as you can see, I've put these nail caviar in as well. And then I'm just going to take off the excess glitter and I'll put it back into the jar later. I'm going to close up the jar with the cork stopper, and I've just put an eye screw into the top just so it looks like a bit of a handle. Give it a shake, and that is your bottle of fairy food ready for your jar. So I'm really pleased with how this turned out. So this is what my little finished tree, I suppose, looks like. I just used hot glue into the top of the jar and popped the stems into it. Looking back, I should have measured and cut them a lot shorter to be able to be seen into the vase. Unfortunately, I did not, so you can't see them. As I said, I still know they're here. So I added a little bit of the leftover glitter that was on that piece of paper into the bottom of the jar. And here I'm using some E6000, just because it gave me a little bit longer than hot glue to play with to position it. So I just popped it on the bottom of the jar. And I'm going to place my tree, if you will, towards the back. I'm sorry this has come off screen, but I'm just going to place that towards the back because I want my fairy in front of this. I just want this more as a background for her. And then just with some needle nose pliers, because there's no way I can position this at the bottom of the jar otherwise. Use some more E6000. And any strong glue will do. I would not recommend E6000 in general because it's so chemical smelling. It's got so many health warnings on it. I don't think it's worth having it, and I certainly, as great as a glue as it is, I certainly won't be repurchasing this just purely for the health reasons. But as you can see, I'm just placing the little food jar into the bottom, and that's what it's looking like so far. And my only disappointment of this entire project was that the tree, the crystal pearl tree, does not show up once the lid was on, so that was a bit disappointing. So here I'm just adding some beads to the bottom. These are just beads I have lying around from my craft collection or my jewelry making collection that I don't use. So as you can see, here are some silver because I just wanted to pick up the silver of the glitter that I use just as a contrast to the red and the white, and this is very mainly a white project. And to go along with those silver beads, I'm just popping some pearls in, some large pearls that I don't really use for my jewelry making. I'm just going to try and cover the remainder of the bottom of the jar just to make it sort of more pretty. And I also wanted to play on the size so like these beads will look quite large against the fairy. So moving on to the lid, this is another thing I should have done or wish I had done. I wish I'd painted the lid first inside and out just because it would have made it a lot easier. but I just have some 2 cardboard circles cut out, as well as some ribbon and lace that I was going to, or I did glue around the edge. And then using some PVA glue, some scissors, a foam brush and a doily, I'm also going to sort of close off one end of the jar just so it's not completely see-through. And I'm going to jump ahead because I'm pretty sure you can figure out, you just take one of your doilies. I just cut the excess frilly bit off. I just wanted that middle section, so that's all I did, is just cut around that. So I will jump ahead. Then I'm going to take my PVA glue, and this is just regular school glue, and I'm going to put a very generous dollop all over it, and I'm going to spread it out with this little foam brush. Obviously you want to use something, if you've got a glue spreader that would be great. I don't, unfortunately, so I'm just using something that's disposable, and I don't mind because glue will ruin any brushes. And I'm just going to spread that all over one side of the doily. And another jump ahead, I'm just adhering that gluey doily onto the back of my jar, so for me that's behind where the tree is, and I'm just trying to get the back done and then gently curving it round with as few lumps and bumps in the paper, I suppose, as possible. You just want to make sure that's really nicely smoothed down. So jumping back to the lid, I have done most of it here, and as you can see I have glued the fairy with some hot glue on top, and then I just had this sort of, I have no idea what to really describe it as. This came from the front of a shoe that I had years and years ago, and I thought it was pretty, so I saved it. But as you can see, there is my fairy handing off, and as I said, I really wish I had painted the inside of the jar, because you can see a little bit of the blue. So I'm just trying to get a good shot of her, which was quite impossible because obviously of the curved nature of the jar, but it looks so pretty, so much better in person. And here is another, trying to show you the shot. It's really hard to get a good one, so I do apologise that this end bit's not so great. But yeah, I'm really pleased with how she turned out, so I hope you give this a go. I hope this has inspired you to do some slightly more whimsical sort of art, decoration, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, as I said, I hope you are inspired, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.